So just quickly, you've obviously got all the products here. Some remain, some have been in the range for a really long time. Obviously the Switchblade, one of the longest running kites in the industry, so we won't necessarily touch on that, but I think you're really excited about the foils this year, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's generally a lot of excitement, I think, with foiling. One of the big kind of trends that we notice being in Hawaii, we kind of see stuff probably a couple years before it hits some of the other markets. So even in Hawaii, people have been just foiling in whatever the weather, so 30, 40 knots, they just foil, that's all they do now. And so we're trying to just bring a much bigger range and give people opportunity to kind of do different stuff. So you'll see a couple of these products which we've just released, the Carve and the Varial. These come in a couple of different sizes, but you can already see that they're much bigger, they're much kind of heavier lifting foils, and they'll go at slower speeds, they're a lot more stable. These are a couple that we've brought out, but we also have our Aviate that we've launched recently.
So I've seen the advertising campaign for that. It's race, but it's not pure race just for racers, is it? It's kind of for the guy who's foiling but is into speed and riding fast. And
yeah, I think one of the hard things with some of the really high-end foils is they're actually really hard to ride. They're up and down, so they're really twitchy. So we wanted something that will be kind of totally race spec, but that really allows people to kind of the everyday users to get used to it. The foil design just moves so fast that if you want to be kind of the top race guys, it's changing every 3 months. So we tried to make a product that will be a bit longer lasting, but a tiny bit more user friendly, but with all the characteristics of a race wing.
Okay. What the first thing I noticed, having not seen one in the flesh, is how short that fuselage is actually compared to all the others.
Yeah.
What's the design behind that?
A bit more manoeuvrable, so it gives it a bit more play. So that's kind of one reason that I mentioned before, where it not being a totally high end, the race spec. We want people that want to get into racing a product that they can really use, but not worried that they just have to constantly change it every 3 months.
Okay.
And some of the race foils are quite hard, especially when you're getting going and starting them off. You need kind of a certain amount of wind. So we wanted to make it really kind of as user-friendly as we could without losing any performance.
Okay. And super long mast on it as well. This must be over a metre, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 105. Okay. So as the 10 kind of tends to be for racing, it's a bit longer. Whereas you see normally for kiting, it's about an 85. So we've got our 85s. And now with prone surfing, which is another kind of big push that we're kind of seeing, is people tend to be on a 65 mast, which is just a bit more user-friendly and easier to control.
It's quite confusing at the minute, I think, because obviously foiling has progressed really quickly and suddenly there's quite a lot of foils on the market. Yeah. Do you think the way that people should be approaching it is, okay, get your mast and fuselage set up and then be prepared to have a couple of wings?
Yeah, I think it's like how you'd have a kite, you'd have maybe 3 sizes of kites, and that's where we're getting with the wings. I think it's quite normal to expect to, have your setup, your mast, and maybe have a couple different wings. Even for kind of surf foiling, we'll use, depending on if the wave's a bit bigger or a bit smaller, you can chop and change with the wings. So I think if you're fairly kind of getting serious about foiling, it's definitely worth having a couple options.
Yeah.
That just gives you a bit of flexibility and what you want to do that day.
Okay. So we're just going to have a quick look at fuselage setup, and we just noticed that the stabilizer on this wing has a downward arc, whereas more commonly we see an upward arc in the stabilizer. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, foiling's, the development is still really kind of interesting at the moment. There's so many different types of wings. You'll see all different kind of configurations, and there's maybe a couple different things that we have. First of all, we've got winglets on the side, which is a lot for kind of efficiency. You see a lot on planes now, all planes, new ones with the wings, they have winglets at the end, and it's a similar kind of idea to that. And also, with our new fuselage now, we've got different mountable points for the rear wing, which basically as soon as if you push the rear wing forward, it makes it a lot more kind of free and carvy. And as soon as it's right at the back, it's a bit more locked in.
Okay.
So we're trying to. That does come in handy for people learning things like that. If they want something a bit more kind of train tracky, we're kind of advising people to have it on the back. But as soon as you get a bit more playful, things like that, or if you want a kind of looser feel, we're pushing the wings forward.
So it adds a bit more longevity to the product, a bit more life.
Yeah, and I think people want, now that people are really getting into the stage where they're really getting good at foiling, and there's so much you can do with wings with your setup. Even we're making different rear wings so that you can have whatever front wing you have, but you change the rear wing. Because the rear wings doesn't actually do that much. It's just kind of the drag. So it could be straight. It could be you'll see all sorts. And that's where I think there is still so much development going on. People trying all sorts of things, and I think it will keep moving.
Okay. And then just to finish, you mentioned that the surf wings, you guys have found that it breaches a bit less easily when you've got a downward facing.
Turning. If you're really kind of on a carving turn, you put so much kind of angle on the board where you actually get a lot of the time where the back wings, as soon as it breaches, you're off. Like you're off the board. So this actually just gives it a bit more where it pulls up at the back, less chance of breaching.